What's up, wrestling fans, trading card collectors? Welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Cards. We've got Paul Anand from the Wrestling Card Price Guide on today, and you know what that means. It's time for an oddball set that not a lot of people are talking about. I say this every time. I'm going to continue to say it. If you see Paul or if you see Chuckster coming on the show, you better believe we're going to be talking about something that not a lot of people are talking about. And it's not because of invest in this, buy in this, flip this. It's again more of a questioning, like why are people not talking about this? Why is this something that wasn't printed very highly? Why is there no demand? So today we're going to be talking about the Micro Brawlers cards. And we've seen in the past action figure cards, whether it's the Bendies, whether it's the major figure pod guys putting out cards, whether it's the AEW cards coming out with their own yellow parallel set. Wrestling cards and wrestling figures seem to have always gone together. In fact, I say that, how could I forget the ECW wrestling cards that came with the figures? But the question is, why has that not really picked up with these Micro Brawlers? Do people even know these exist? Maybe they don't like the style. There's a lot of questions that could be asked about these cards, and me and Paul dig into that and try to figure out why. But before we get into that conversation about the Micro Brawlers cards, here's just a few reminders of how you can help show your support for my content. The best thing you can do, it's easy, it's free, you're already here. Hit that subscribe button. Like this video if you've liked it so far. If you like Micro Brawlers, if you like action figure wrestling cards, wrestling figures, or if you've liked any of my other past videos, I appreciate the support. And I would appreciate if you would share this. Hey, I got an idea. We're trying to get more people into wrestling cards, right? How about you take this video and you share it with somebody that collects wrestling figures? I know there's a huge collector base for Micro Brawlers, but what are they doing with the cards on the back? Share this with them. Let's get them collecting more wrestling cards. Check out the podcasts I'm involved with, Wrestling with Cards, the podcast, my solo podcast, as well as the Worlds Collide podcast, myself, Tony Vella from WrestlingTradingCards.com. Each week those episodes, well, maybe not Wrestling with Cards, that one, I try to get out as much as possible. But Worlds Collide is every single Wednesday we're dropping new episodes. And both of those podcasts are available on all popular podcast platforms. No matter what you listen on, they're out there. Just search Worlds Collide Wrestling Card Podcast and the Wrestling with Cards podcast on whatever popular podcast platform you listen to podcasts on. And they're there. Hit the subscribe button there when you find it. Leave us a review if you're digging it, or if you think it sucks. Hey, I'll take constructive criticism. That's fine. I'm here for you guys. And then again, like I said, with this video, share the podcast with a friend, family member, somebody in the hobby, somebody into wrestling figures, or somebody into wrestling card. If you would like to help contribute to my content monetarily to pay for lights, equipment, whatever else we've got going on, check out Wrestling with Cards on Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you can help show your support and get your name in the credits of these videos. Look at this list here. Talk about top tier community list members right here. Thank you guys for your continued support. There's also some higher tiers than $1 you can get into, whether you want to request a video, get some access to exclusive video content, maybe become a part of the Wrestling with Cards booking committee. No, not the WCW booking committee, the Wrestling with Cards booking committee, which actually we may be even less classy than the WCW. But either way, please check that out and show your support. You can check out my eBay store, Beast Mode Collectibles, where I've got tons of cards for as little as $1.50 shipped. They go up from there. I've got all kinds of stuff, memorabilia, sports, non-sports, built-in discounts to take advantage of. So I'm happy to serve the collectors that want these cards. Check me out on social media. I'm pretty much at all social platforms. Whatever you're on, I'm probably on it. At Zhan Morning, just search that and, share this on your social media platform of choice and tag me. And I'd love to give you a follow or reply to this, get a conversation going on social media about maybe the topics we're talking about today. And then, of course, links to buy me a coffee. You know. Gotta have the iced coffee anytime I'm doing these interviews, anytime I'm doing these videos. Staying caffeinated, keeping the content coming out. Everything I've talked about is in the show notes, links below, so when you're done watching this video, please check those out, because as content creators, we need the continued support of the viewers to help keep all of this going. But enough of that. Let's jump into why these Micro Brawlers are not kind of picking up steam like some of the other wrestling figure trading cards we've seen come out, with Paul Anand from the Wrestling Card Price Guide. We've got Paul back on the show, and anytime Paul and Chuckster's on the show, we're going to talk about sets that nobody's looking at, or talking about why they are not as readily available. So, Paul, welcome back to the show once again. And
nice to see you again, brother.
I'm going to give you the floor, and let's go.
It's always a treat to do these one-on-ones with you. Like you said, yeah, Chuck and I were the oddball guys. So we've been on the past, and I talked about the 95 Paninis. That's hard to get. And we went and talked about the top set, the recent one, 2016. It was internet only. Has become very difficult. And we had that big deep dive on all the Indian stuff. And the Indian stuff is sort of where things really go over a cliff in terms of oddball and crazy. And I know Chuck's talked about, I think, the retro sketch and the Hasbro stuff and the Springfield or the Simpsons knockoff. So I wanted to keep going in that vein with something that I've chatted about before here and there online, but that's the 2018 to 2022 Pro Wrestling Tees Micro Brawlers cards. And for those of you guys that don't know, Micro Brawlers are these wee 3-inch cute little figures that they make of everybody. And a select number of them come with cutout cards on the back. Now, let me explain to you how it works. The bulk of these Micro Brawlers don't have cards. They come in just a vacuum packed bag with a little tag at the top, and that's it. And you get the figure itself, and then you chuck away the bag. But some of them have these cutout cards, and I'll be showing these as we go along, that have different characters. And there's a reason why when they first started, I said, oh, that's cute. But over the last year, they started in 2018, what's made them significant is, one, there's been a lot of them. I've cataloged to date over 120.
Oh my, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like if there's a dozen of them, so what? There's lots of sets where you have, but they keep making them. And the other thing too that I realized a short time ago is that they're timely. So, for example, the Cardona wedding happened, and then all of a sudden there was Micro Ballers with the cards, and those cards are very hard to find. One of the more recent cards that you couldn't get that came on the market, or figures, was Scott Hall, and I realized that coincided with his passing, and someone probably decided, let's do that. And the last two, Zhan, that have just come out literally in the last week is Ric Flair. We've never had a Ric Flair Micro Ballers, and one's called Space Mountain, and the other one's called Bloody. And I figured, oh, that's got to coincide probably with his
last match.
Right. So for me, it's like these cards are very reminiscent of the 1994 to 2001 Bendham cards. The figures cards, they were called, what was it? Bendham's?
Just Bendham's.
Just Toys. Yeah. Just Toys and Bendham's was the product line. And they were all cartoony. And so are these. These are all like little cartoons of things. And again, to show them, I'll go through these. When you look at them, on the back, they have different...
oh, cool.
They don't have backs, first of all. You can see one says Ring of Honor, one says Pro Wrestling
Major Figure Pod.
Yeah, because they would have been cut out from the actual figure. And I've gotten a lot of mine still the whole back, and I've had to physically chop them myself. People have got the figures and then don't care about the card or the backing piece, and they get them away. The interesting for me is that they don't seem to be catching on, because I've got like 97 of these, and I started collecting them when I first saw them in 2018. And I thought, oh, these are neat, something a little different in the oddball category, but they kept coming. And I'm going to go through some of the names, and that's also significant, is you're going to hear names here that you might not normally hear, and some of them are more, not indie based, but again, like for example, like on this one, you got Bob Cardona, who is Matt Cardona's father.
Yeah.
And I think that one came out in around the time of the wedding. Here, this one here is a retro Andre the Giant, another Andre the Giant card. But hey, if you're collecting Andre the Giant, this is a rare Andre the Giant.
Gotta have it.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just gonna bang through some of these quickly and carry on. Like Bret Hart, Brian Pillman, we got Bushwhackers, Bully Ray. And there's some characters like Chad Too Bad, who I've never heard of. I don't know if you know who this character is, but I've never seen him before. Have you?
No.
And there's a few names on here. Chad Too Bad. There's a couple of Danhausens here, and I might get in trouble, but I believe that a couple of these were the first Danhausens that ever got put on card. They go back to that time. Delirious, Doc Gallows. This is kind of cool. You remember from the Foley's, Frank the Clown?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I don't think there's ever been a Frank the Clown down in the little corner there.
Yep.
So these are the kinds of things, then, that you're catching. Eric Young, who we just saw up here at Greektown, Dynamite Kid, Iron Sheik. Here's one. Here's a Chibi. The Chibi are the Japanese versions that you see down the corner there, Jay White. So there's not a lot of Jay White cards. And I think there's also a Tanahashi and a Takahashi. Josh Matthews, Kevin Nash, Kurt Angle. Tony, if you've never seen the Kurt Angle version of this,
there we go. Yeah.
Down the corner. There's also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I don't have two of them, different versions of the Macho Man. So if you're a Macho Man Savage collector and you're into these, you don't get one, but you get several. Mark Sterling, Matt Nix, Moose, a couple of Owen Harts here, which are cool. I'll show you those. And again, you don't see them every day, but I've been able to get them And whenever I see a few I don't have, I snag them. Shockmaster, which is cool. Here's a Terry Funk to Neil Dashwood. And again, some of these characters, like here's $1,000 Broski, which is again another one of these, sorry, Matt Cardona's.
Yeah.
And look, I'm sorry about the way I did it now. This isn't the best way to do it, but if you go onto Priceguide and go onto the Micro Brawlers, maybe you can put the link there. I
Hmm.
have my flip through, so you can actually see on my video and pause them and look. But I'm surprised. We've talked about different cartoon cards before. We obviously had the ice cream cards that went back in the day. They didn't start off as cartoony, but they went towards cartoons in the later good humor sets.
Yeah.
Um, the NWA Power Series from a couple years
Yep.
ago were animated. We have art cards in regular sets, the Schomburger releases, even the Matt Cardona guys. They have their Bendums, and those are cartoon cards as well. So
Hmm.
this is in that tradition of animated cards. Then, of course, we have the custom art cards. Your guys like Kevin Gust and 75 Kings. And the cool thing about those is that they're completely accepted by the hobby. Not only does Price Guide and WTC archive them, but when I was at the National, I saw a Kevin Gust card in a showcase right beside the 1974 Yamakatsu
That's
card.
awesome to see that.
That was. And I should have taken a picture to send to Kevin because I thought, okay, fuck, that's very cool.
Hmm.
Like this guy puts the same value intrinsically on displaying this card. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's a dude in his basement. That's a great artist that just put this thing out.
Yeah.
But he's elevated, I guess, with us throughout the hobby um, to it being a significant release. So yeah, Cardona Wedding I mentioned. There's 4 Brian Myers cards. There's 7 Savages. So again, it's the kind of thing that as they keep coming out, this thing is going to grow. It reminds me of in the 70s. I don't know if you're familiar with these, and there was these photo cards called Boyd Pierce. And what they were,
I know of them, but I don't know a
they were
lot of.
like,
I've seen them, but I
you
don't know a
don't
lot about
you
them.
don't see them that often anymore, but they were like 5x7 or 4x6, whatever they were, just black and white photos. And they just have the wrestler's name underneath. And there was tons of them because for the longest time on Price Guide, I would be getting an email a month saying, "Hey, do you know that there's a Pampiro Furpo 2 card?"
Hmm.
And the idea being that there was so many of them. And I've tried to archive a lot of those, and it's the same thing here. It's like, oh, this is new, that's new, this is new, that's new, and it's adding to the sort of record of a set that keeps on growing, kind of like the living set, right?
Hmm.
But um, with these figure cards.
All right, so let's just start. I have a bunch of questions, so we'll
Sure,
start
sure,
now
sure.
that we've covered the ground. Do you
Yeah,
know
what they were.
print runs of these things? Do they release those? Any ballpark on that?
I have no idea because I don't buy the figures, right? I'm sort of getting the backs of the cards or people that have cut out the
Hmm.
cards on the secondary market. Um, they often say limited. Like, for example, I know the Cardona wedding figures are still expensive. You're spending $100 per, whereas if you get a run-of-the-mill figure, it could be $10. They're not that expensive. And I guess it depends on who the character is and what it represented. Because there are some, for example, that I don't have that I've never seen for sale on eBay. Those ones haven't come up. But I would say limited, but not that scarce that you can't get them.
I guess it too varies on, who are you getting these from? Because if it's a collector that's a mint on card collector, you're not getting that card because they're going to keep it in the package. But
Right.
then the ones that tear it out, so that adds another level of rarity to that, I would say.
Well, that too. A lot of people don't like the fact that they get all mangled on the back, right? Because you
Hmm.
don't know what you're getting on the back based on how you tore it. But again, if you get the front and you got that image, and you've got like Danhausen in a cape, there's one called Summerhausen, which I don't think they've ever done a Summerhausen card. So these are neat little twists that you might not ever see anywhere else, but on these sort of oddball microballers. That's why sort of I've been, hey, wrestling guys out there, the guys like us that like to collect broadly and get into some of the weirder stuff or the not non-mainstream, if you will. People are paying big numbers for ice cream cards now, Zan. Like if
Yeah.
you can find a mint set of the early gold bond cards, you're paying a lot of money for those. I know for a fact that whenever I pick up figures cards, and I think you've picked up figures cards along the way, they do quite well in
Hmm.
rotation. A turns into A plus almost every time with those.
Yeah.
So I'm keen on these kinds of art cards and things like this. I like these Indian sets. Like, it's hard to say the value of them because they're so outside the realm. But
Yeah.
I think as a collector, they're very cool.
So you were talking about like the broadness of the set. And I think that's something that they did that's really cool because you went from Andre to Danhausen and
Yeah.
everything in between. So I think it really would appeal to a lot of different collectors, even like super collectors where you're just going after that one person, but you got to have it. Or, somebody that's trying to kind of diversify themselves within different styles of wrestling to
Yeah,
learn
like
more. And
as soon as a Cross or a Loomis comes up, I'll let you know.
yeah,
Right?
yeah, definitely going to
Because
need that.
you'll have to have it,
Yep.
right? I mentioned that one of Kurt Angle, but Terry Funk, Bloody, and then even things like this, like the Naito card, the chibi version.
Yep.
It's very cool to have these Japanese guys, Neil Dashwood, Shane Taylor, who I've never heard of, the Shockmaster, Sex Ferguson. You ever heard of Sex
I
Ferguson?
have. Yep.
Okay, so you're one up on me there. And again, as a fan too, as a lifelong fan, it's kind of cool, like when you learn about new performers through cards like this, because up here we don't get whatever indie company he's working for. But yeah, I really dig these cards, and it's been a mission of mine to sort of try and assemble as many of these as I can.
So you mentioned the cross thing coming out, and that has to do with the super collecting aspect. You showed off some different types. So like you showed all the Macho Mans, and I immediately was like, oh, that's cool looking rainbow type thing. Are there different parallels, or are they only the variations based off the figures they come with? Do you know?
The figures have the
So
variations
they
as well.
match up identical.
They do match up, because there's not just Macho Man. There's a few. Well, there's some that have two. For example, just again, the best way is to flip through them on my flip
Yeah,
through.
and I'll definitely make sure to
Like
put the link to the.
there's an Owen Hart at the bottom here. Then
Mhm.
there's an Owen Hart Japanese tour, right? So, and on the back it says the Owen Hart Foundation. So these might have been limited figures, and I think Pro Wrestling Tees has the license for them. But like obviously MWFP referee, so Major Wrestling Figure Podcast. So obviously those boys are got their hands in making them as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, so this one is a Maven WMVP exclusive. Then you got a Mark Sterling with a suit, which suggests to me that there's probably one without. Um, yeah, and again, there's a few machos. There's a couple of Jordan Grace. There's Jordan Grace pink suit, Jordan Grace regular. Again, just neat. The
Mhm.
things that make a set collectible in my mind is the sort of off-ball things here. I really like this Frank the Clown because he's the only one in the set that's green. Delirious, Doc Gallows, Deanna, Loose Cannon Pillman, Flying Brian Pillman. And I know that there's 4 Brian Myers. So those guys are connected, I guess, with the Pro Wrestling Tees guys, and they get these things made. And I'm always of the mindset that things don't get made if they don't sell. So there's a market for them. And these cards are out there, and I'm not the only one buying them up. I've lost a couple of auctions for cards that I've gotten most of the ones that I've been able to get, but there's still another 20, and they're always coming out. So 2 years from now, we could meet again. So guess what? There's now 250 Micro Brawlers cards out there.
Yeah, and you never know who's going to get released or,
Yeah,
unfortunately pass away. And, like these people could end up getting figures down the road that we don't know
right,
about. So those
right.
collectors out there are going to have it.
And maybe it's the figures crowd that's into them more than the card collectors. But I just know from like even the Hasbro cards and the original figures, the LJN cards, they're still in high demand. The ones that came out with the original '80s figures. So we wrestling collectors do want to get our hands on this stuff.
That actually kind of leads into the last two questions I had, and we'll go the first one. Do you think this could potentially get more people into wrestling cards that are not already? And that, it's a great tie-in. We saw that with the AEW figures that were released with the exclusive yellow parallels. And
Yep.
we've talked ad nauseum, me, you, Tony, other people, about how Upper Deck has totally got new people into AEW cards. It's just that the facts of the
Well,
facts, we've seen it.
there are AEW micro brawlers. The
Mm-hmm.
back of those ones don't have the cutout card, but they do have a solid back. I have those as well.
Okay.
It just gives you more statistics, and it's just of the main ones. And to answer your question, for sure, any time you bring in something that might appeal to a kid or someone sort of outside the mainstream, there's lots of different art collectors. Like
Yeah.
people really like those Matt Hardy art cards that came in the TriStar sets. People from outside wrestling. So the idea is that anything that brings attention to the hobby that's a little bit different is kind of neat and it's not terribly expensive. You're not paying $50 a card here,
Yeah.
not yet. Possibly.
Yeah, you say not yet, and then look at the ice cream bar cards and all those other
Yeah, you're
odd
paying
things.
that now, sure.
Yeah.
But you're trying to get your Austin and your Rock and your Triple H and your Undertaker.
Yeah.
None of those names are here yet, but Owen is here and Ric Flair just got here. So I don't know how the licensing works on the figures, but they got a shit ton of them out there. And
Yeah.
like I say, the lion's share of them don't have the cutout cards. So if anyone's just interested in the line and seeing who all is out there, you think of someone, there's a figure, a micro brawler out there.
Does it make it hard to put the set together on the figures or on the cards? Like you said, some of them don't have cards. So does it, are they linear when they're released, or is it like this guy got a card, but these three didn't, and then
I
this
don't
one
know.
did?
I don't know how that works out, how the manufacturer gets the ones with the cutout cards versus the ones with just the bags without.
Are they numbered on the back like a typical card would be?
No. Well,
Interesting.
these ones, the cutouts have nothing on the back because it
Wow.
would just be on the other
Yeah.
side, right?
Gotcha. Okay.
Um,
That's interesting.
yeah.
It adds like this level of mystery about it where, some we're going to have to
Well,
use the
the
checklist.
only way to keep up on these is the way I do it is I go onto eBay and I look at all the figures and no, I've never seen
Hmm.
this figure before, and then I can tell by the packaging if it's got the right kind of packaging that it would have a card cutout on the back. And that's how I found out about the Ric Flairs. Just in fact, this morning prior to us chatting, because I saw them. I'm like, there's no Ric Flair figures, and then there is now because
Yeah.
he's been topical. And I know the Cardona wedding, the figures came out just after that. And there's been a few things that have been coincided with actual events where the event has happened. Micro Brawlers put out the figures, and then subsequently I cut out the cards. And again, we collect so many different things in so many different ways. And some people are into these oddball things that I chat about.
Hmm.
The real crazy diehard set guys that want to get their hands on as much as they can, or like to find this stuff that is a little bit off the beaten and narrow. That's what this is all about. And I appreciate that I can talk to you on your show. It's
Yeah.
a good series that you've created where we have a showcase. Because on my monthly with Tony, I think a couple of times I mentioned, hey, everybody, microballers, if you don't know about them. But it's nice to talk about them in more detail here and sort of get into them as to why they may be a good contribution to the hobby overall.
Last question. Why do you
Yes,
think
sir.
they've not taken off like NWA Power? Because similar art style, I think. We already talked about how the wrestling figures have kind of taken off. And then if you want to take it a step further, we both know that the major figure pod guys have like a cult following that'll
Yeah.
basically buy anything they put out. So
Yeah.
why do you think all like maybe some of them are out there collecting these,
Maybe. Oh, yeah.
but it just
Yeah.
doesn't
I'm
seem
not
like
the
it's
only
taken
one.
off.
I'm not the only one, but I don't see a lot of secondary sales happening.
Yeah, me
It's the
neither.
same guys that get them. Um, I'm not sure, man. That it is a good question, but
Hmm. It just seems like there for a moment in time, maybe a year or two ago, there was like this huge boom for those WWF bendable cards. And I'm like,
yeah.
this is essentially the same thing, a little bit different art style, but the
I,
same
I I
kind of
don't know
thing.
what the overall success of the figures themselves is, not being a figures guy. Like
You're
if you were
right.
to speak
Yeah.
to a guy from the figures world, he would probably speak very intelligently on how microballers fits into their overall universe and what they are. And for all I know, to serious figure collectors, these could be a throwaway thing.
Hmm.
But they've made enough of them. They're out there for sure. People are buying them. They're not terribly expensive. Um, to answer your question directly, why are people maybe not as keen on these? It could be because you got to cut them out. It could be because you get nothing on the back. Um, Again, these aren't for everybody. It's the kid in me that really likes this kind of stuff. And the fact that they keep cranking them out, the fact that shit, I got like 97 of these now. It's turned into a collection
I
in and
think,
of
yeah.
itself, just of these.
Well, thanks for coming on and talking about this. And again, we've talked about the flip through that's on the wrestling card price guide. We'll definitely put that link in the show
Yeah, and
notes of,
that's there for any wrestling
yeah.
set. If it's the wrestling card price guide, more times than not, from my personal collection, I will have taped the set at 8-second intervals. We flip the page, and then you can get a sense of what the overall set looks like. So a lot of the audience finds that helpful as well.
Let everybody know where they can find you. And if you got anything else you want to put out there.
No, just as always, thanks to you for the great work that you do. Paul Anand, the Wrestling Card Price Guide, card_guide. As you know, I do a monthly show with Tony Vella on
It's great. That's
WPT.
one of my favorite shows on the interwebs right now.
What's going on with wrestling cards, and there's a few of those shows. And I'll be honest with you, we do a monthly show where we talk about pricing and what's going on. I know you do those
Hmm.
videos, and the Card Foundation, they do their segments. And I'm happy to report that listening to all three, we don't cover the same stuff,
100%.
because that was a concern of mine, as we're always saying to people, more content, guys, more content. We don't want to get to the point where the content isn't valid, or we've said it all, or we're just saying the same things over and
Right.
over. Rookie versus first appearance. We've had that one about 10 times now. But point being that there's still a lot of great information amongst all of us. So, spend your time on this channel, go to Tony's channel, go to Card Foundation, check us all out, because I think there's a lot of good stuff there.
If we really dig into wrestling cards as a whole, we may overlap occasionally, but I don't think we're ever going to have a shortage of things to talk
No, it
about.
doesn't seem like it,
No.
because someone's always cranking out a Micro Brawlers card.
Yep, there you go. Paul, thanks for coming on today. Thank you guys for watching.
Thank you, brother. See you soon.
Thanks again to Paul for coming on the show. Wealth of information on these and had several of them, showing them off to us on the camera. And I beg the question to you watching this video, why do you think these cards have not picked up? Me and Paul went back and forth as you saw in the video, and I don't think either of us can come up with a reason right now. Maybe PSA isn't grading them. Maybe it's because, like Paul said, you have to cut them out and people aren't wanting to do that. Maybe it's because these are on action figures and people that are a lot of times collecting action figures want to keep a mint on the card so they're not cutting the card out. I really don't know. I don't have the answers, but I thought this was something that we needed to talk about today because they are pretty cool cards. I think the figures are cool if you're into figure collecting. I think this product actually merges the world of wrestling cards and wrestling figure collectors. And I'm just not sure where the disconnect is between that. So again, I would love to hear your thoughts and your comments. Leave a reply below what you think about these cards, or you can tag me on social media, share this link to get a thread going, maybe on Twitter or Instagram. I'd love to hear everyone's comments. I thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, again, please hit that subscribe button. It's free. It takes 2 seconds. Give me a like. And until the next video that I put out, click the video on the screen for more great wrestling card content. I'll see you there.